Hi everyone, welcome back to Unsung Hero MSU Edition Episode 5. Today we are in the Centennial Student Union in order to meet our fifth guest. Let's go see who it is. Hello Mark.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for accepting to do the interview with us. Thank you for joining the project. Before I start with my question, do you mind introducing yourself however you would like?
Sure. My name is Mark Constantine. I'm the director of the Student Union and Student Activities. And some people know those things. The student union is sort of the building and the life of campus and the operations part, and the student activities is more the programmatic part of what we do. All the student events team, our community engagement, RSOs, leadership, those type of things, and that's my general role on campus.
Okay.
I've been here 12 years.
Okay.
In October will be 12 years. My family, I grew up in okay to give this background a little bit for you?
Yeah.
I grew up in New York State, Western New York State. I always say Western New York because some people hear New York and they think of New York City,
Yeah.
and there's stereotypes that go with New York City, so I always like to say Western New York. Went to school in Albany. Have a lot of good friends in New York City and Long Island, but New York City and Long Island are much different than my hometown.
Okay.
My hometown is Jamestown, New York, and below Buffalo, and it's a lot like Minnesota more than it is really New York City, as people think about that. I've been in higher education administration my whole career. Been doing this for about 46 years now.
Okay.
Overall, I consider myself a lifer. I love working with students, like higher education, like college, university life, and so it's been my career basically. I've worked in 5 states. I started up in New York State, worked in residence halls for a while. I worked at Shippensburg University. It's sort of where I got into student activities and unions in South Central Pennsylvania. Was at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Tennessee, for a bit, and before here I was at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. All my stops have been, even though there's been 5 places, have been lengthy. It hasn't been like I've jumped around a lot. I was 8 years mostly, and then in Virginia I was there for about 15 years before I came here.
Okay.
Yep.
So Virginia is still beating us up by 3 years.
Yes, a little bit.
Okay. Do you mind sharing a bit about how the student union was like when you got here 12 years ago versus all the things that you've done or like changed over the past 12 years
Sure.
to now what we can see?
Yeah, that's a good reflection. Fortunately for the students and for me, we've had a lot of good leadership before I came here. A number of different directors and staffs that have been long-term staff as well. Not a lot that are still here before me. There were 2 associate directors that have been lifelong people here. They've both retired since that time, but there's been a lot of consistency and people that care about the building and the activities and the programs basically. So I give kudos to those before me because we, the university, and the students and faculty and staff have been pretty fortunate to have good people here overall. So I want to give credit where credit is due. Your question related to, well, let me say a couple things related to the past. A few things happened before I got here that were instrumental for the building. As you look at the Hearth Lounge and the big glass in front of the building, that wasn't here. I think it got changed out maybe in, I don't know how many years ago, but before the entrance to the building there was really some steps downstairs and sort of a little bit of a patio area, and it was really kind of dark and dingy. And so it was revolutionary when they went and go ahead and made that addition. That is the Hearth Lounge and the windows, the Casota stone. It really opened up the building, to the street and to the campus, and gave us, some good. Power is not the right word, but good reflection on what a building is supposed to be all about. So I think it's important to understand that move was really pretty important. We've had 3 phases of the building though. The original phase that we're in right now, and then a second phase that went down a little bit farther, and then the third phase is the phase that is the multicultural center, the reporter, the student activities office, those 2 floors. That was the last phase that was built along the way too. So you've seen progress in all those phases along the way. Another project that was done just before, a little bit before I got here, was the ballroom. The ballroom needed some attention, and so they sort of remodeled the ballroom. And when you've been here enough, where you see the Casota stone outside of the ballroom, from that piece, and the ballroom was all redone, and that was a nice addition too, for freshening up. And as much as the ballroom is used, really made it look really nice on that piece of it as well. So I want to give some perspective about the phases of the building.
Do you mind sharing what drew you to MSU, especially the CSU, considering that you've been to so many other places before coming here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had been at William & Mary for about 15 years. Really enjoyed it there. I had a good time overall. Sometimes it's just maybe time to make a change. Potentially. I wasn't looking for anything directly. I did look around Virginia, where I was a little bit more, so we would maybe have had to move, my wife and I. But then I expand my search a little bit too, and when I saw this position advertised, 2 main thoughts for me to pick it. There were some things about the job description that I felt very comfortable, and I thought I could do well. I thought I could bring some resources here on that. But there were also a couple things that I hadn't done a lot with necessarily in my career, and I like those aspects of it as well.
Okay.
Here, I'm a little bit more administrative. I would say that I work with the finances of the building a lot, the budget part of it, as you know from student government, the CSU budget and those type of things. Also, I've worked very closely with the student government related to the student allocations committee and those type of things. And then the other part. So it was the finance piece that I really was attracted to me, and also the dining part of it, because there's 2 primary contacts for dining on campus. Anthony Bettendorf is our director of Res Life, and so he takes care of the UDC, in that area with the Res Life piece of it. And then I'm the primary contact for retail dining. And so I've worked with dining people and catering and those type of things for special events, but I've never been really the point person, and that attracted me a little bit. I said, I'll learn something else in my career about dining and the dollars that go along with that, and the creativity as well. And then the other part was really the operations side of the building. Okay. My career had been more on the programming part, like our student activities team, on those places a little bit more. I had university centers or unions reporting to me at William & Mary, but I wasn't in the trenches, I would say, as much as I am here with that part of it. So why Minnesota? It was really, could have been anywhere, but the job description and the people when I interviewed here and when I met, I really enjoyed that. I'll put one other thing with that. I grew up in the outdoors a lot in Western New York when I was growing up, and I sort of lost some of that a little bit in my last couple jobs, maybe because my career was going so fast, but also not as many opportunities for the outdoors. I'd say between fishing and hunting and some of those type of things. And Minnesota is known for some of those outdoor pursuits, and I said to myself, maybe this is a good time to get back to my roots a little bit. And I made a good call, because I met a lot of nice people here, and it has gotten me outdoors a little bit more. So for my personal part of it, I really have liked that. It was a good move. I really have enjoyed. I guess another piece with this that I have felt why it's kept me here. I felt that our students here at Minnesota State University were a lot like me growing up. My parents didn't have a lot. We were fine, middle class kind of thing. But I went to community colleges 2 years because we didn't have a lot of money, so saved some money, and then I went away to school after that. But I've felt when I got here that our students, a lot of our students have to work, as you know, in order to pay the bills. I think our students are very appreciative of college and education. I've worked some places, I think, sometimes where I think they felt like it's more of a privilege to be there themselves, that kind of thing. So I've enjoyed our student body because I think it reflects maybe where I was in my life back in a time. And our students, do care, and they have to work hard, but they also are involved with campus things overall. So that's part of some of my choices why here.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting to
I've
hear.
I've never been. Well, you talk about you're a world traveler, but I had never been in the Midwest at all. My position, it was really the farthest west, was in Knoxville, Tennessee, which was a different part. In Virginia and Knoxville, more the mid-Atlantic piece of it overall. But I've enjoyed the Midwest overall.
Okay. That's interesting. I feel like all the people that I've interviewed so far, one thing that I like about Minnesota is obviously the people, but they also just like how, I don't want to say easygoing life is in Minnesota, but like the calmness of it. Like there are some challenges or some excitement here and there, but overall, it's kind, it's peaceful, it's enjoyable, it's not too hectic. It's just the perfect mix of everything.
Agreed.
Um,
Yeah, I think we take ourselves serious, but I think that we also, I think the people in Minnesota also know how to try to keep some perspective, I think.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. You were mentioning some of the vendors that they are in the CSU. You talked about Sodexo. I know that there's also a bank here.
Mhm.
You have to collaborate with people from different industries slash companies. How would you say you are able to build and maintain meaningful relationships with all of them?
Yeah, that's a really good question overall. I think most relationships start with being real and treating somebody like you want to be treated overall. So, when I meet some of those vendors, some people and things like that, I think one of the first goals is always to try to meet people and introduce yourself, know a little bit about them, not just business automatically right away, where you're from, some of the family stuff. So you're building relationships. The more you know about people, the better off for the comfortableness as well. So my personality is, I'm a little bit, it fits pretty well with that because I like people, enjoy the profession. I'm not shy about getting together with people and talking and things like that as well. So I think it starts at the ground level and building relationships through talking and conversation. And then the other thing, maybe related to what you're talking about here, any partnership really has to do with give and take. So if somebody has something they need, you learn about their needs. They understand how the university works, and how do you work together to make sure that both parties are being successful. You said you were thinking pretty well related to some of the things that I hadn't brought up. Sodexo is one of those vendors. We have the Affinity Plus Credit Union. Work with that person as well that has this bank as well as the one in town. They have two locations. I don't know if you knew that or not, but they have another location that they opened since they've been here, actually, as well. And then the other big relationship in town and here is the bookstore.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you know, through your student government, David Cowan is the primary person with the bookstore related to the contract, but since they're in our building, we deal more with them on a day-in-day-out basis related to, the space, the facility, lights and heat and all those type of things too. So it's about having good relationships along the way to move things forward. This isn't strictly around what you said, but this is, I think, a part that's important too. We have a bunch of offices that are in this building too that occupy space in the CSU.
Okay.
But I look at those as more collegial because they're part of the university, and then I do the outside vendors. But it's also important to have really good relationships with those folks. So when I first kind of came here, you try to get together and meet the staff and meet the directors and form relationships and how can we help you. Don't wait for something to become really bad in the room. Let us know about it first and things like that, because those things are important. And whether or not you remember this from student government, some of those folks that are in our building, they pay rent to be here because you remember they're on the general fund dollars, tuition dollars, versus us that are on student fee dollars. So we do have a landlord-tenant relationship with them of sorts because they rent space to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say that I tend to forget even like the Kearney Center, International Center. It's in the CSU, but for some reason I tend to think of the CSU as just the math half part, the bank, the bookstore. I never really think of this for somehow as part of the CSU. But you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, between the Multicultural Center, the Reporter, the Student Government Office, the Counseling, LGBT Center, the Veterans Center,
the Women's Center.
All of those pieces are an important part, and it's done strategically to have them here because those are student-facing and active student areas as well. So it makes sense to have them here.
When I think of the CSU, I think of it as a living room where everybody gets to kind of gather after a long day, before a long day, or like during like their crazy days. But like, sorry, I forgot. So, what does the CSU being a living room mean to you, and how bring that vision to life every day?
Yeah, that's who we are, really. I mean, the life of a good student union is to really try to be the living room of the campus, and you've read some of that. You've seen those type of things, And our staff, we're driven by those three words that you often hear: invite, involve, and inspire. We want to invite people to the building. We want to involve them, especially students, in their daily routines for their student organizations and everything we want to do. And we want to inspire them to be good leaders while they're here, but also to take what they've learned here as our living laboratory to wherever their next jobs are, or be members of their community, if it's in their faith groups, whatever, Chamber of Commerce and those type of things. What did they learn here that can be better from there? So you hit it perfectly, and this is what we do, and we try to live that in everything that we do, related to the Hearth Lounge and related to the furniture, related to the looks. The invite and the involve part, I would stress on that part of it really is about the Student Activities Office. How do we have students involved with community engagement, RSOs, leadership? The student events team is the major programmer on campus to do some different things, and that's part of really bringing people and keeping people here by the activities that we do on a regular basis. So it's the physical part. I like to say a student union isn't necessarily about the building. It's about the life of the building, and our goal, all of our staff, is to bring life into the building. Some of the other ways that we do that and show that, as you've known, Lenny Copel takes care of a lot of our different series. He has a Serendipity music series, so we're bringing something into the building once every 3 weeks or so. Our therapy dogs, that's part of having a home away from home for students by bringing those pets in there. It's one of our most successful programs. People love sitting down for a few minutes with an animal, thinking about their animals from home potentially. Even if they don't have one, they feel comfortable with some of those type of things too. So, Lenny's got a lot of creative juices as well. He takes care of a lot of our marketing. You get every Sunday, you get that insider in your email. All that comes from our office, is trying to help students understand what's going on campus as well. The CAN in the bathrooms, the Captive Audience newsletter, is to try to inform people about what's happening in a future week as well as that week overall. So I'm glad you asked that question, because that is imperative of who we are. We want a relaxing, great place for people to be, if it's studying or if it's have fun with friends. And that's why the spaces that we have, the Ostrander or the ballroom for the larger cultural events, the importance of those things are part of that living learning part of the building.
That's good to hear. I have another question about the overall CSU. So, your name has always intrigued me because as a person who speaks French, as a French speaker, the name Constantine there's a name also that is equivalent in France. So I was wondering if your name had some French origin, but then I found out that it looks like your family is from Albania.
Right.
Um, how would you say the way you grew up, or at least like your family environment, how would you say it it shaped the way you think about making every student, regardless of their origin, feel welcome and at home in the CSU?
Love that question. That's a great, great question. And I think you as an international students are gonna relate to this, to my answer. My family was not different than a lot of families that were coming to the United States in the early 1900s, for instance. Both of my grandparents were from Albania. I'm 100% Albanian, which is hard to, there's not many people around that has both sides Albanian, but both of my grandfathers came to the U.S. Without their families at the time, the story you hear off and on, to come and work and make enough money so then they could bring their families back after that. And the thing, my father was born in the States, but my mother came over when she was 2 years old from Albania. But to sort of get, so to get your thing, I have always felt very, very fortunate. You think about the people that come before you that had nothing, basically. They left Albania primarily because of religious persecution at that time that was going on. And there wasn't much to offer and things like that, but people coming here didn't know the language at all, didn't speak American, U.S. English at all. I've always felt a nice, I think, a bond that way because of the hard things they had to go to make it better for their families and to make it better for me, the next generation after that. And I relate to students, I think, because I think the student piece of it is very, very similar, especially our international students. But I think those hard lessons and the people that had to give to my family before me opportunities, our role is to give students opportunities through our clubs and organizations and through involvement and things like that. So I always have felt like a connection with college students because of the opportunities that we want to have them, and luckily for me, the opportunities that my family before me had. My one grandfather, just a little side story, really was, he was a cleaner. I guess he got little jobs in banks and different places, and he would work at night after the places would close, and he would clean. My other grandfather, like a lot of Albanians, but I say Albanians and Greeks, I'm Greek Orthodox was my religion because there weren't enough Albanians to have an Albanian Orthodox at the time. But my other grandfather bought into a restaurant bar, and the reason I'm saying it Greeks because, maybe you've picked this up, but a lot of Greeks have restaurants and restaurants around the U.S. Basically they've been very entrepreneurial, their own business. They work hard. They work a lot of hours, and so it was kind of a funny piece with that piece of it as well. But then they got enough money. They got back and got their family to come, and then created lives for themselves at the time. So to answer your question, I think for me, it's that heritage that I'm very, very proud of, and the working class in order to be able to make it work, and then the thankfulness and the gratitude that I have that I try to bring to my work every day to try to give students an opportunity to be successful as well. So you must have picked up that Albanian. Was it through the website
Yeah.
Is that where you saw it? Yeah,
Yeah.
That's great. That's good. Some good research on that piece.
We try.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that the CSU is just not a space. It's not simply a space, but it's also the people, the life within the space. But as any other place, you need some improvement. You need to work on it, because otherwise the place dies down and the space becomes useless. What are some of the projects that you are proud of having worked on in the CSU?
Yeah, okay. Since my time here, we've taken on a number of different things, and I'll say two big projects were rooms 253, 4, and 5, and 245. We've completely remodeled those and made new technology. And the reason I bring up those rooms is because they're probably the two most used rooms on campus that have a little bit more size. We have the side meeting rooms. We have 238 where student government met, but a 253, 4, and 5, and 245, I wish I had 2 or 3 more of those, because those are the size that people want a little bit more. You can fit up to about 100 or 110 people in there if it's a luncheon or a dinner, smaller ones, not like the ballroom. Or you can set it up in theater, and you got the walls in 253, 4, and 5 and things as well. But those rooms were redone since I've been here. They needed, it's always, if you're going to be running a building, you always want to try to keep up with it and keep it looking nice, and it's paint, it's carpet, it never stops. If you want a building that really is the kind of building you want to be proud of, and we want to be proud of for Minnesota State, you always need to do some things. You probably wouldn't know this, but where 245 is now, that's where the counseling center was at one time. And when we built that room, we did some moving around, and the counseling center is down on that third phase now in that far room back there. So it was a little bit of a shift for us at the time. So that was a couple big projects for us. The other thing that we needed, and this isn't sexy, this is something that just needs attention, but we celebrated our 50th anniversary a few years ago. And as you get on in the years, a lot of your infrastructure, heating, air conditioning, those type of things, there was a long-term plan about here's some things we need to do in sequence, and a lot of those the planning phase went, but a lot of them really weren't done yet. So over the course of the last 12 years, we've tackled about 4 or 5 big HVAC, heating and air conditioning projects, heating, ventilation, AC, that's HVAC basically, that have made the comfort level in the building, the guts of all those things needed to happen, so you try to avoid failure, that those things don't go out. So we've spent millions of dollars really to be able to do some of those things over my time here. And again, it's not something that people see very much, but you've got to do them. Yeah. They've got to be done along the way. So those type of things as well. The other thing that was done just as I was coming on board too is the bullpen, our game room area, was redone. Okay. And across our system for sure, but even in the Midwest, we've got one of the nicest game rooms really anywhere, with a 12-lane bowling alley and the 18 billiard tables and things like that. It's really pretty nice. But that had given a nice upgrade, make it look a little rustic. I still like the way it looks. Overall, I think it's a great space for us in that area. We have upgraded some things in both those areas, though. In the bowling area and things like that, some of the monitors there and the whole backdrop and the new purple and gold. We've redone that in a good way a couple of years ago that makes it look nice and shiny, and it shows off better for the students as they want to be there and spend time in that area. So that we've done some good work in the bullpen as well. Overall. Another thing that we've done a lot of work on since I've been here is in our retail dining areas. As part of the contract with Sodexo, when we have a contract, there's a thing called refresh dollars. That's part of the contract, and when we did that contract with them about 10 years ago, not quite 10 years, we knew we wanted to do some upgrades. So I've been really heavily involved with different concepts that come into the retail. You know, which concepts get stale. You know, you always want to change over for students and for faculty and staff and bringing in new things. So anytime we went and would look at what's working and what isn't working, we've had some money to help do those. And the big one really was about, well, time goes by so fast, maybe about 5 years ago, where we remodeled the whole Mav Ave. We brought in a few new concepts there, but the freshness and the new counters and all that kind of stuff was really big and important in what we did. More recent with retail and the things that you've seen since you've been here was also the reflection of bringing two great concepts, and that's Starbucks and Chick-fil-A. We've always had some concepts in the lower level, and you wouldn't think it's that far. It's just downstairs, but they've never been really. They haven't hit as many clients and students as we want to. So when we were making decisions on the last time what to do, we said because we had Chick-fil-A, you remember that upstairs?
Yeah, it was upstairs.
When we moved it downstairs, we thought that people would go there. We had multiple concepts downstairs, but when we decided to go with Chick-fil-A, we said we'll just do one and we'll expand the footprint a little bit, thinking that people are going to go down there because it's Chick-fil-A. And it's proven totally correct. When we did some remodeling before, we did some of the remodeling was in the FPS, which people can go and eat there during the day. We have meetings in the afternoon. That tables and chairs that are around Chick-fil-A, those were done on the first remodel a few years before that. So we made some good strategic decisions or hopes, and they came to fruition because it's hit a home run. You know, not everybody likes Chick-fil-A, I'm not saying, but those that do, it's a pretty popular place. And then Starbucks is Starbucks. I'm not a coffee drinker personally. I get some cold drinks down there once in a while some food, but Starbucks is so big. Sodexo, our dining services, they had their own concept there. I don't know if you remember that before. It was Jasmine's here when you were here, right?
Yeah, Jasmine.
Jasmine's was good, and they did a nice job, but when you bring in Starbucks name and what that means, and people knowing that from every city, you know, in the country or in the world sometimes, we knew it would bring us to another level, and it did. Both those two things. So the work we've done with dining have really helped enrich the building too, and have brought money for us related to some tables and chairs and the seating areas. I mentioned FPS. All that work was done because of some of those monies as well along the way. So that had been, those were big as well. I'll do two more things and then I'll get in this question that I like to make sure. You know, we have a place downstairs in the Hearth Lounge that you certainly know is called the Best Board, and Best standing for boasting exceptional student talent. That's where we have those 8 pictures up on the wall. And we brainstorm with our staff often on what kind of things we want to do and stuff like that. We had talked a little bit about what kind of things can we do to show off our student leaders a little bit more. And from that initial conversation, we decided to create this area that we could highlight 8 students this semester for that area. And as you know, a nice picture shows about what their involvement was, their major, their countries. And we've taken great pride in that. It's unfortunate you only have, you know, showing off 8 students this semester, and I get that piece of it, but it gives a snapshot to give visitors and fellow students and faculty and staff of the pride that we as in the building, running the building, have in our students to be able to show them off in some way. So that's been a real big hit for us, you know, overall. And as you remember, if you go into FPS sometimes, we make small boards about the 8 people, and we've been continue to create those in FPS so that if somebody graduates and comes back a few years afterwards or 10 years afterwards, they can go in and they can see their picture on some of those best boards in the past too. So that's really been a nice addition for us as well from a leadership standpoint and a building standpoint. You know, outside the building, right behind you, actually on this part, we have that big outside board that advertises, the electronic board, advertises programs and things like that. We brought that in a couple of years ago so that we thought as people coming in back and forth from classes, they'd have an opportunity to see some of the great things that we offer in the building. And I don't know if I've shared, well, you've heard me maybe say this a little bit, but I'll stop with this right now. This summer, we're planning to do rooms 201 through 204. Have I shared that with you at all?
Maybe.
We're going to remodel those rooms. We're really basically gutting them, bringing in new carpet, new walls, new technology. In those rooms, we had old projectors and we had screens, but they're all going to be flat screens now, and everything will go directly through the technology. We won't have the big projectors anymore in there. And we've made a decision to sort of theme those on Minnesota themes, each room. We won't call it, the rooms will still be sort of what they're called, but one will be what I would consider iconic Minnesota, and be some pictures that people will see, and they'll think automatically Minnesota. Another one of the rooms, sort of based off of outdoor type of things, will be prairie, since farming and the prairies we're flat here, as you know. Once you get outside the Minnesota River Valley, the things will highlight prairie type of scenes, and also animals that are associated with prairie as well. Like when I think about the prairie, you think about the bison potentially. And then the next room we will call Northwoods, because people in Minnesota love their outdoors, and we're talking about more up north, Boundary Waters and those type of places. And they'll highlight you think about the deep woods, some of the different things associated with that. It might be the wolf, maybe some from the wildlife parts of it, but a lot of pictures that will depict Northwoods. And then the last room would be lakes and rivers, because we have, we're the land of 10,000 lakes. But people, from an outdoor standpoint, they love the lakes, they love the Boundary Waters. You think about our state bird is the loon. People think sometimes water or Northwoods, the moose maybe, potentially, and some different things like that. So when I bring up these themes, each room is going to have a wall with pictures that will help depict the theme of that room. And the colors of the room will do the same. When you walk in, we'll have a strip of carpet. I use the prairie that will be more gold, for instance, because that's, you think about prairie things. And then the wall that will have the pictures on it will be a bronzish type of wall, with the pictures will all be prairie type of things. The Northwoods will be like a deep green a little bit more. The lakes and rivers will be blue. And the iconic Minnesota will be purple. And some of it will just maybe be some things that people know from Mankato. Some might be from the cities. Some might be from other places across the state that people can relate to. So we thought that was kind of a neat thing to show off our state.
Do you think it's going to be ready by the beginning of the next academic year?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I want to see it before I leave.
No, all the work's going to start, when we do summer work a lot of times, it will begin typically like right after commencement. And so they'll start demoing some of those rooms, that not the Monday after commencement, because we still have some things going on, but later on, and that Tuesday or Wednesday, they'll start taking care of that and then start building. And we want it done by the first week of August, so we're ready for international orientation and the rest of the orientations. But that's one of the summer projects overall. So I'm trying to think about the bigger things for you to reflect on, but it's nonstop small things as well. I'll mention one more. I'm sorry. Okay.
Go ahead.
Outside the Kearney International Center, we're going to do something that we're going to put a map of the world up there, and some clocks, and under the clocks we'll have different cities of different places across the country. You've seen that sometime other places across the country use those or places, but we thought next to the International Center would be perfect, because then students maybe can feel, if they see their home city or their country or something like that, they can feel at home with that. So the plan is we might have this done possibly by commencement. We're not sure if it's going to be done, but we're hoping, so that it gives a little bit of a homey feeling for our international students. I mean, it'll be a map of the world, so there'll be cities in the States and different places too. But that one, we'll have a lot of places where and what we're doing, we're putting little slides in so that you can put in different cities at different times and rotate those sometimes. We worked with the Kearney International Center and asked them for, maybe some suggestions about 20 cities they thought would be students would resonate with because of where they're from and stuff like that. So they gave us some suggestions, and we have some. So we're going to make about 30 of these. I say cards, but they're not going to be cardboard, but slots that would go in, and that they'll have different cities on there. That would be pretty neat too. And we chose that spot. You look at the Kearney National Center. There's this one wall right there that's brick.
Yeah.
When people come up that stairwell, will be right in front of them
Okay,
there,
that's cool.
and next to Kearney too.
That's cool. I've seen that. I don't know where exactly, but it's definitely cool. I think I saw something like New York, and then there was.
Oh, you know where it was? That's down in not Wigley, but Morris Hall. There's that one room up there on the second floor. They have that New York, if that's what you're thinking, on campus.
Yeah, it was somewhere.
They have like 4 o'clocks up there in that
Okay.
one business room. Yep.
Okay.
But there's no map. I think it's just the clocks.
Okay,
Yep.
that makes sense.
Yep.
That makes sense. Yeah, I could have. That's definitely a good idea. I feel like, especially as an international student, when we look at the walls, everything is in English or everything is. It's significant to the U.S., but it doesn't always captivate my attention or like attract my attention. But then when I see something in French, maybe, or something about just something else that I can relate to apart from the U.S., my mind always. I don't know how it works, but it's like,
Yeah.
it's a word in French. It's
French is your
something
native language, right?
No, but it's
No?
my first language
Your
for
first
sure.
language.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, one thing that we did a couple of years ago, we created our Sitting with Stomper bronze downstairs on our Mav Ave area. And it's sort of the same, it was a similar type of thing from a staff meeting. We're always talking about, what can we do, what kind of things can we do as a new tradition maybe on campus. And we said, a few schools do have some bronzes along the way, not a lot, but we said, what happens if we would create a bronze with Stomper? We didn't call it Sitting with Stomper initially. That would be either in the building or outside the building, that would draw people as photo opportunities for commencement. They always go to the fountain, but some other things, or for welcome week with their families, or family weekend, those type of things. So we got started in thinking about something like that, and then Lenny Koppel and myself, we were the two primary people that sort of worked with making that happen overall. So our goal was, and we made a decision to bring it inside, because outside with our winters and things like that, you might not be able to enjoy it as much. But we wanted it in a high traffic area. So when people were doing tours, alums coming back or something, they would see that. But we didn't want it just to make it like a figurehead. We didn't want to have it just as a statue. Our thing was we wanted it interactive, and so we made enough room on that bench where somebody could sit on one side, sit on the other side. We made enough room in the back where a residence hall floor could come in together and take a picture overall. And we, as the name reflects, Sitting with Stomper, that we wanted people to sit and not keep it like as a pedestal. You don't notice that we have ropes around it. You can't touch it. We want people to touch it and be part of that. So that was one of, for me, it would be one of my, I think, my centerpieces of my career here, where I do think we, the CSU, have created a nice tradition, a nice spot for this campus to call their own and to bring people together through Stomper. During Welcome Week, we might have a photo opportunity, and we give prizes maybe out for some of those type of things. But it's been a home run for us. You've noticed, maybe you haven't, but we got on Stomper during commencement week. We have a mortar board, the cap, that we put on top of Stomper so that people can come and take pictures during that week as well. So we've tried to be creative about how do we use that with different seasons or different holidays in order to be fun for people as well. So that's been one of the projects that we've been really pleased with, and we felt like it's really connected well with students.
Earlier when you were talking about your decision to move to Minnesota, you talked about how in addition to the things that you had already done somewhere else, there were a few things that you had never done, that, and the challenge was exciting enough to incentivize you to want to apply to this
Mhm.
position, and eventually you got it. I was wondering if you had any piece of advice for anyone, or um, maybe one aspires to be a leader like you, or aspire to lead a lot of people like you do, but they're kind of scared of certain challenges, because I recall you were talking about budgets and other stuff, and I've been in student government for the past 2 academic years, and I've noticed how the CSU does a very good job at keeping its budget very close to whatever they usually use. And you mentioning all those changes, yet it's not always like reflective of a huge gap or like a huge increase in your budget.
Mhm.
So among all those things, I mean, you can talk about anything really, but like, do you have some piece of advice for anyone who would want to lead one day and they just don't know how to embrace challenges?
That's a really, really good question. One of the first things I'd start with a little bit, I think we all have it within ourselves more than we think we do, in order to be able to take on new challenges or our leadership role. We're different people. Some people are quieter, some people are more outgoing, but how do you play your strengths? That's learn what you're good at, know what you're good at, and then play those strengths. And no matter what you involve with, in order to be the best you possibly can be. So if I'm a little more outgoing and you're a little shy, let's say, I'm not saying this is the case, but if you're a leader and you're a little more quiet, how do you surround yourself maybe with some people to balance in the thing, where you've got people that are a little more outgoing possibly and things like that. But it starts, I guess what I want to say, it starts from your heart. And if you care enough about anything, and you have passion, you can make something happen. So that's one of the pieces of advice I always tell students: don't be afraid, no matter what you're like and what you aren't like. Rely on what you feel inside, and go out and try to make those things happen. The other thing I'd say with that is, I'm a person that I'd say always do something to the best of your ability. And I say that, but within the time frame you can do it, because as a student, you might be working hard, but you might only have certain times to do it. But I've always tried to tell people I don't like, I don't say like, but when students get lazy, or people say they're going to do something and don't do something, they're making excuses along the way. But I say that if you're going to make a commitment to something, try to do something to the best of your ability. And when I say best of your ability, it doesn't mean that it has to be perfect. The best of that person's ability as well. And the last thing I'll say about leadership, I think that's really important, is maybe this is the most important part. Let people know that you care. That you care about them, that you're thankful for what they've done for the group or the organization or what they do. A leader needs to make sure that the people that they work with feel good about what they're doing, and that you're making sure that you're always constantly letting people know. I'm a person that, well, I'll say this more. Some of the best things I've ever received from somebody, from a student maybe, of thanks or something like that, or from a staff member, is a note card. Just a simple card from somebody that says thank you, goes a long ways to me. Nowadays, and I'm included in this, it's easy to do it through an email, and that's fine too, because you can get something to somebody fast and let them know, hey, thanks for the job you did last night, or something like that. But there's nothing like getting a card. So what I'm saying, I do write cards a decent amount. Like when one of my staff members does something that or put a lot of time into a project, I'll write a little bit of card, put in the intercampus mail, and say, hey, thanks for your good work on this project and things like that. So it just goes along with that piece. I'm saying that let people know that you give thanks for what they've done for those people that you work with, basically. A couple pieces of advice.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have any type of regrets um, over those 12 years that you've been at MSU? Is there anything you wish you had done differently, or something that you wish you had done but never actually did, or like just a regret about over anything?
Yeah, it's a good reflection. I don't think I'd say from a large standpoint, maybe, but I'm no different than anybody else sometimes, where maybe I hadn't handled a situation as well as I should have. I've been around a long time, and I get that I'm pretty seasoned, but even if you've been around a long time, sometimes you need to stop and think before you react. And I've had a few situations, something like that, and I won't even get into what it was because it might not be important, but I'd say that a couple times I wish maybe I'd thought before I spoke, maybe, or didn't overreact to something. And it hasn't been a lot, but a few times like that is important along the way, especially as you're role modeling with students. I'd say more of that probably is maybe more related to staff on certain things and stuff like that. But not any big, those haven't been big things, it's just smaller things overall. A year goes by fast sometimes. We've got a line of things that we want to do. Do we always get to every one of them? No, we don't, but if they're important enough, we will get to them along the way. So I don't have any huge projects or huge things in the building that we haven't done yet that I think are important to do. There's still a few on the table that I think that are important, but I don't have a lot of big regrets. It's really more like maybe small ones that you'd wish maybe you had thought a little bit more before you maybe got into something along the way. Related to, you didn't ask this piece of it, but I will say this related to future when I said, when I have a regret, but one thing that we do want to have after this 201 through 204 project, Mav Ave, the main Mav Ave area that you say when you think about the building, it's ready for a little facelift there too. We have some old pieces there that are a little bit more like 90s, 2000s, and we've brought a consultant in last year and looked at that a little bit. We haven't gone any farther with that, but we really do think like we maybe want to go ahead and give a nice facelift for that main area when you come in from the south entrance, the bus stop area, the seating areas, some carpet and some different things like that. There's a lot of different lighting down there. If you look the next time, some can lights in different places. There's these plexiglass things that were there for color, but they look to me, they're a little dated, and so that's one of the next big areas, and that's going to be like a $1 million project probably for us to get in there and really spend some time. And that's going to be a tricky one too, because we do those in the summer typically, but orientation uses a spot, so orientation is going to have to do some modifications if and when we get to that. Our initial plan was maybe to do that next summer, but maybe might be the following summer possibly. That wasn't what you asked, but I wanted to make sure I threw that in there too, a little bit all future things. But I loved your question related to regrets. I think more than anything, it's about, for me, it's about how the staff works together and how we treat each other. And I've been blessed to have a lot of good people that I work with day in and day out. We haven't had a lot of conflict or anything like that. That's important, and it still goes, not just the staff. It all ends up going to the students, and I love working with students, and that's what makes you feel good about coming to work every day, is because the students in which we work and we try to help and give opportunities to.
Okay. If someone were to talk about your legacy or your impact at MSU, particularly in the CSU, what do you think they would say?
You're asking a lot of great questions. It'll go back to a little bit of what I just spoke to. I think a teeny bit. I hope people would feel that I'm passionate. I care about what I do. I know they would say I'm hardworking because I put a lot of time into the building and what I do. I hope they would say that I've been open-minded to new ideas. Um, I've always said, when people talk about money and things like that, they say, well, we don't know about money. And my mantra has always been, if there's a good enough idea, we'll find the money to do it. And so I've tried to be open-minded, even though we're not rolling over in money. But if there's a good idea, that we try to do that. And sort of one of the things I left you with before, I hope people would say that they've enjoyed that I've been fair, and that they've enjoyed working alongside with me as well. Also, and from the student standpoint of it, I would hope students would feel like I've given them an opportunity to thrive in the responsibilities in which they've worked. Some of our student workers, for sure, people like you in student government along the way, student allocations committee, student union board, that we've given students an opportunity, and I would hope that they say that they've enjoyed, working together alongside of me in order to help create a good atmosphere for the CSU.
As an international student, well, I came here in 2018, and when I think of the CSU back then and 12 years up until now, I can think of how excited I was the first time I noticed my flag on the small waiting area when we wait for the bus.
We did that since I've been here.
There is, I think 2 years ago, I read a poem about. No, it was not a poem. I did a piece in the ballroom, and I was talking about a quote that a friend of a friend said a while ago that I found on the CS wall. I was looking for inspirations. I knew what I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to make it pertinent to the student. And then I came across his picture, and then I read. I think it was in the Flex programming space. I read what it had said. Yeah, and then I used it as a quote for when I did my speech.
Nice.
What would be the one piece of advice that you could give to your younger self, the one that had stepped on the first day here at MSU, something that maybe you wish you had known back then, but as you grow older, you have more wisdom, and now you've gained that knowledge. What is one piece of advice, or just one thing that you would like to say to your younger self, if you could?
Yeah, when I came here, I was already established pretty well. I mean, an answer that different compared to my first and second job versus my, fourth and fifth or fifth and sixth job.
I mean, if you want to bring it back to your first job, that's good to me.
Yeah, no, maybe I can reflect on both of them a little bit. The one thing that's always, I think, carried me, I've been lucky. I've got a lot of energy. I've got a lot of passion, and I'm not afraid to put the hours in order to make things happen along the way. So that's helped me in everywhere that I've gone along the way. I'd say in my early career, I would say this, that I probably, because you get enthusiastic as a residence hall director and those things, maybe I tried to do too much myself rather than not let students, but have students be part of those things early on sometimes. Not totally. I think just some of those things, because you get you're trying to make things happen and make yourself look good professionally and do some things, and for the students to see that as well. I think that's important. Looking back here now, anything or reflecting that I had done, I'll say that we're such a decent sized campus. I think the one place that I wish I had done more and maybe could do is get to know some people that you don't know as well, colleagues. Like when we chatted a little bit earlier about we've known each other, we see each other, we say hello, but to really get to know somebody a little deeper along the way, and probably, students come and go a little more, it's harder, but even on some staff people that I work with, not my staff, but staff outside of my area, because my staff I know pretty well. you know, how do you take a little more time in your day or your week or your month just to learn a little bit more about people? Maybe as time goes by so quickly, maybe that would be one thing that I wished I had maybe done a little bit more. Yeah.
I don't know. Well, thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Thank you for doing this. I hope this was a good way for you to kind of reflect about all these years
Very
you've
good.
spent here. Um, Again, this project is really a way of honoring the people who kind of work behind the scenes of our campus, because like you say, we come as students, we come and then hopefully one day we leave with a degree. But like sometimes we don't realize that apart, like even in addition to the work that the professors put in, there are so many other people that also work towards our success, whether it's to ensure that we have clean water, clean spaces, that we have fun even among the chaos that school can bring to our life, or like that we can create for our own selves. So this was just a way of saying thank you, a way of recording your memories, but also having it somewhere on the internet, so that for as long as the internet will be a thing, people will still know that there was a Mark Constantine somewhere at MSU, and it did this for this.
Well,
So
thank
thank
you.
you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.